Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today, we're covering rookie quarterbacks. As always, make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Let's go. So, my number 7 rookie quarterback, of the 7 who matter, Spencer Rattler. So, let's take a look at his college stats. So, in 2019, barely played. Then in 2020, he was pretty good. 67.5% completion, 3,031 yards, 9.6 yards per attempt, 28 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He also added 81 carries, 160 yards, and 6 rushing touchdowns. Of course, though, we know in 2021, he had a few games, but then he lost his job to Caleb Williams. But he was pretty good, actually, when he played. Just obviously not as good as Caleb Williams. And then transferred to South Carolina. He played, as the starter, 66.2% completion, 3,026 yards, 7.6 yards per attempt, 18 touchdowns, 12 picks. And then 2023, he got a little better. Raised the completion percentage 68.9%, 3,186 yards, pretty good. 8 yards per attempt, solid. 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Nothing wrong with that. 97 carries for 104 yards. Remember, sacks are negative in college, so that's why that seems a little weird. And then 4 touchdowns. So let's break down Rattler's strengths and weaknesses. So strengths, we all know who he is. He's been, we know this player. This is someone in high school, we knew who this player was. And in all 4 college seasons, he threw the ball accurately. He did. He threw the ball accurately. That was good. Some weaknesses, insanely slow, no rushing upside at all. 4.95 on the 40. The best college season was 2020, which was a long time ago. Kind of short, weak arm, older prospect. So a lot of weaknesses, not so many strengths. Projected NFL draft capital, late 3rd round, Rams at 99. I don't have much interest in Rattler because I have him 311 in my Superflex rookie drafts. It's not someone I'm targeting. It's a deep draft. I'd rather take someone in another position. Rattler's not going to be on my radar. Next up, Michael Penix Jr. Now, I think he's probably the most interesting prospect to talk about. I'm definitely not as high on him as some, maybe not as low on him as some others. He was in college for 6 years. 2018, barely played. 2019, he became the starter in Indiana. 68.8% completion, 1,394 yards, 8.7 yards per attempt, 10 touchdowns, 4 picks, a little bit of rushing output. And then 2020, kind of similar, except the completion went way down, 56.4%. But again, not much rushing output. 2021, even less accurate, played even fewer games, worse yards per attempt. It's pretty actually terrible in the little bit he played in 2021. Now, before we get into 2022 and 2023 with Washington, because that's a completely different player, 2018 through 2021, they all had something in common for Michael Penix Jr. Season-ending injury. All 4 years. Not good. Not good. We don't like to see that. But I'll give him credit. In 2022, he transferred to Washington, and then all of a sudden, it's like he became a different person. 65.3% completion, 4,641 yards, 8.4 yards per attempt, 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Still didn't do too much on the ground. And then in 2023, he basically just ratcheted it all up. Same accuracy, but added yards, added touchdowns, added yards per attempt, and was similarly kind of a 0 on the ground, which is interesting, as we'll get into. Strengths, elite passer in 2022 and 2023. Cannot deny that. He was. The speed, sub 4.6 40-yard dash at the pro day. Kind of is odd because he did nothing on the ground in college, but the speed is there. It's going to be interesting to look at the next level. He did support strong fantasy options, Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan. So he did do that. And he can make every throw. Weaknesses, turned 24 in May, the 4 season-ending injuries, 0 actual rushing production in college, none of it. And he did nothing worthwhile in college until 2022. He was not okay. He was bad. I mean, really bad in 2021 especially, but also even 2020. Not good. So where does that bring me on Michael Penix? I really just don't believe that he's a first-round prospect. The Raiders, I do think, are the team that's going to take him because they desperately want a quarterback and they're going to miss out on the top guys. I think 44, he's not going to make it there. So I do think they might have to trade up a little, kind of in the Will Levis range, maybe from last year, 35-ish. Maybe they have to go into the late first to get him. But I do not buy that the Raiders are going to pick him at 13 like I've seen in some mocks. So we'll have to see. If he goes in the first, he's going to be worth a lot more in Superflex rookie drafts than if he doesn't. Rookie draft value, 204 for now, but if it's a first-round pick, it's probably going to be more like 202 or 203. If he's not a first-round pick, it's going to be more like 208. He's just not a player I'm desperate to draft, to be honest. I think he's overvalued. I think there's just too many people who like him more than I do. Now, our cover player today, Bo Nix, the player that I think I maybe like a little more than consensus. College stats. So he's actually started, I think, more college games than anyone. So 5 full years as a starter, first at Auburn, then at Oregon. 2019, he was not so great. 57.6% completion, 6.7 yards per attempt. Nothing special here. But I do like the rushing production. 313 yards and 7 touchdowns. Similarly, in 2020, not great. A little better. Improving a little bit. Same rushing production is nice to see, but didn't really improve as a passer. 2021, kind of, again, we're getting progressively a tiny bit better. Little bit better yards per attempt. Little bit better on the interceptions. A little bit better on the completion percentage. But again, these 3 years, it's not horrific, but it's not an NFL player. But then he goes to Oregon, and let's be honest. Let's look at his 2 good years. Very similar to Michael Penix. Bad years and then 2 good years. 2022, 71.9% completion. That's very good. 3,593 yards. Pretty good. 8.8 yards per attempt. That's great. 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and 89 carries, 510 yards, and 14 rushing touchdowns. Now, that's not a typo. Apparently, that's actually what happened, which I think a lot of people don't realize. And then 2023 just ratcheted it up another level. 77.4% completion. I don't think I've ever seen that for a prospect. 9.6 yards per attempt, 45 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, which is, again, insane. And another 6 rushing touchdowns, 234 yards on the ground. So some strengths. 5-year starting experience. No one has more starting experience in the draft than Bo Nix, ever, actually. Insane accuracy in 2022 and 2023. Absolutely. Very accurate. And 38 rushing touchdowns in college. I think a lot of people don't know that. And they don't realize that Bo Nix is someone who will offer rushing touchdowns. And as we know in fantasy, especially in 4-point passing touchdown leagues, but also because rushing yards are worth more than passing yards, it's very important for fantasy football. Weaknesses. The Auburn situation, the Auburn tape stats, it's bad. It's not, as bad as Penix in Indiana, but it's bad. There was a lot of screens. I think he had like 38, a ridiculous number of screens, 38% or something. Turns 24 in February, so he's an older prospect, like some of the other guys in this class. And I just don't see the ceiling as a passer. He's not going to be better than, I don't know, throw out your middling quarterback, maybe Jared Goff. I mean, that's the best he'll ever be as a passer. He's not going to be the high-end passer. He doesn't have that. So, projected NFL draft capital, I really do think that the Broncos have their eye on Bo Nix. I can't really see how they're going to get Bo Nix because I think 12 is too expensive. Maybe they'll trade down, but I do think that they'll get Bo Nix somehow. Superflex rookie draft value 203, 15th overall. I think people are just way down on Bo Nix. If he goes in the first round, I'll probably have him even higher. So, yeah, he's going to be a target for me. Probably the quarterback that I'll target the most in rookie drafts. Just because the ones who get draft capital, who the Dynasty community dislikes for reasons, are usually the guys to target. Next up, JJ McCarthy. And I was pleasantly surprised when I looked at JJ McCarthy's profile. Didn't play much in 2021. Then 2022, 64.6% completion, 19 yards, 8.4 yards per attempt, 22 touchdowns, 5 picks, and he also added 5 rushing touchdowns with 306 yards. 2023, ratcheted it up, 72.3% completion. We love that. 2,991 yards, 9 yards per attempt, 22 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, and another 202 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Strengths. Just turned 21 in January, early declare, put up solid numbers in his age 19 and 20 season. So when, Bonix and Michael Penix were busy being horrible at the same age, JJ McCarthy was good. So what would JJ McCarthy have done if he'd stayed in college till the older years? Probably been even better. He was highly accurate, efficient on the passes he did throw, and a winner. 27-1 as a starter. NFL teams love that. I think it's not that important. QB wins are overrated, but I guarantee you that's a large reason of why his draft stock is as high as it is. It's certainly not hurting his case. Weaknesses: lack of passing volume. Nothing special as a rusher. He doesn't offer that special rushing fantasy upside. We won't have that from JJ McCarthy. And we only have 2 years as a starter to judge him on. It's one of the smallest track records of the quarterbacks in this class, although everything he's put up is good. So at least there's nothing bad on his track record. So you could look at that as a positive or a negative, depending on how you want to see it. Projected NFL draft capital, he's going to go in the top 10. The Vikings I have at 5, trading up with the Chargers. I think that's very chalky. But there are other possibilities. The Patriots could just take him at 3. Some buzz about the Commanders taking him at 2. I don't buy that. But I think he's going to go in the top 10, and I don't have any doubt about that. And as for his Superflex rookie draft value, I would say that I have him from the 107 to the 108. In the tight end premium, you have your big 3 wide receivers and your other 3 quarterbacks. Then tight end premium, maybe I'd have Brock Bowers ahead. Non-tight end premium, I might have Brock Bowers behind. Depends on that landing spot. But he's not going to fall out of the top 8 for me in any Superflex league. Next up, we got to get into Drake Maye. Drake Maye, very similar to JJ McCarthy in terms of what you have. You have a 2021, didn't play, essentially, and then 2 years as a starter. So you have that for both players. Drake Maye, 2022, 66.2% completion, 4,321 yards, 8.4 yards per attempt, 38 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and 184 carries, 698 yards, and 7 touchdowns on the ground. Now, that's great rushing production. So if he'd just come out after that season, I think he would have been in contention with Bryce Young and CJ Stroud to be the number 1 overall pick last year. But he came back for 2023. And I will say it was a downgrade. The accuracy was lower. The yards per attempt was a little bit higher, but didn't throw the same number of touchdowns, few more interceptions, although he did have 9 rushing touchdowns, which is nice. 16 rushing touchdowns in 2 seasons as a starter is very, very good. Strengths. The size is there. The underrated rushing, again, I feel like we don't talk about it that much, but he'll provide some extra rushing value in fantasy. Maybe not compared to some other players, but he will provide something which gives him a little bit of an added floor and raises his ceiling. He has an experience in high passing volume that someone like JJ McCarthy doesn't have. Just turns 22 in August, a younger player. So a lot of positives for Drake Maye. Some negatives. The fact that 2023 was way worse than 2022 is a red flag. And when he lost Josh Downs and also Antoine Green, who was declared for the NFL draft, was really strong in 2022, and he wasn't there in 2023. So he lost those 2 NFL receivers. Then all of a sudden he wasn't nearly as good. So just something to keep in mind. Projected NFL draft capital, top 5 pick for sure. Patriots at 3 has been the common destination for Drake Maye, but I think the Commanders at 2 are equally as likely. We're going to see. And yeah, that's kind of my take on Drake Maye. Superflex rookie draft value. I still think this is someone who would be in contention for the number 1 overall pick in some other years, including last year and certainly in 2022. So I'm fine taking him as the 104. I think that's kind of a value in Superflex rookie drafts. So the top of this draft is really good, but yeah, I'm fine taking him there. Next up, Jayden Daniels. So Jayden Daniels has an interesting college journey, kind of similar to some of the other guys who transferred and then were better. Very similar in that way. 2019 at Arizona State, 60.7% completion, 2,943 yards, 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 8.7 yards per attempt. And he had 125 carries for 355 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, I want to note this season. A lot of people say Jayden Daniels at Arizona State was horrible. And, they dismiss him because it took him so long. Nothing about this is horrible. As a freshman, a true freshman, to come in and throw 17 touchdowns to 2 interceptions and 8.7 yards per attempt is not horrible. So he wasn't horrible here. 2020, we can kind of dismiss because Arizona State only played 4 games. He was okay, but it's a very, very small sample size in 2020, the COVID shortened season. Not his fault that Arizona State only played 4 games. And then 2021, he was the starter again. And, this season, I see the red flags. He did upgrade the completion percentage, but, 10 touchdowns to 10 interceptions is not good. And, the rushing did go up, though. I love to see that. He doubled his rushing yards and doubled his rushing touchdowns from 2019. Then, of course, he went to LSU. And, kind of 2022, if you look at it, very similar yardage to 2020. Same touchdown to interception ratio, 1 more interception, slightly lower yards per attempt, but 885 rushing yards and 11 rushing touchdowns. So he started to become dominant as a rusher, interestingly, later in college. And then, of course, 2023, everything came together. And this is one of the best college seasons of all time. 72.2% completion, 3,812 yards, 40 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 11.7 yards per attempt, which I've never seen for any prospect ever. And then 135 carries for 1,134 yards and 10 touchdowns. So elite rushing production combined with elite passing efficiency, combined with not turning the ball over. So he did everything you would want to be a high-end quarterback 1 in the NFL in this last season. Strengths, 5 seasons as a starter. He's got experience. Not as bad at Arizona State as people say. A lot of people say he was terrible there. That's not the case. He did show the upside. In 2021, he showed the rushing upside. In 2019, there was passing upside. And his 2023 season was one of the best ever. If you're just going off the last season only, Jayden Daniels would be the first overall pick. If it was just based on that and nothing else. So, that's why he's in the top of the class. Weaknesses, slightly older, 24 in December. And to be fair, would he have been a draft pick based on the rest of his profile? Yes. Was there anything super high end that says he should be a first round pick until 2023? No. But because of 2023, it was one of the best college seasons ever. Projected NFL draft capital, top 5 pick. I still have the Commanders at 2 being the destination for Jayden Daniels, despite all of the recent smoke. And again, this would be a player who could be the 101 in other years. Absolutely could be. But this year, because Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr., generational prospects, inhabit this class, he is only the 103 in my Superflex rookie draft. But if you get Jayden Daniels at 103, you should celebrate because that is a massive value compared to what you might get in other years. Lastly, Caleb Williams. And, we know that Caleb Williams is amazing. You don't need me to rehash it, but I'll rehash it slightly. He took over for Spencer Rattler in 2021 and immediately 9.1 yards per attempt, 64.5% completion, 21 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and rushing 442 yards and 6 touchdowns. Immediately. Good. Then everything got better. Completion went up. Did it over a full season on the volume, 4,537 yards, same yards per attempt, doubled the touchdowns, and still had some rushing production, 10 touchdowns. And then 2023, a lot of people say it was a down year, but was it really? I mean, completion percentage up, yards per attempt up. Still had 30 touchdowns and just 5 interceptions. Didn't have more than 5 interceptions in any season and 11 rushing touchdowns, although the overall rushing volume was down. So maybe a down year in terms of USC's record, but not in terms of Williams' play. Strengths, elite passer from minute 1. That's very hard to do in college. That's your Trevor Lawrence. Elite passer from minute 1. No adjustment period, no delay. Came in, was good immediately as a freshman. That is very hard to do and usually means a top overall pick. Rarely turns the ball over. 27 rushing touchdowns in college. We love to see that. Elite in the red zone. I think it was a 46-1 in a touchdown to interception ratio in that area. That's really good and can work in and out of the pocket. Weaknesses, really, there's only one. He needs to realize that NFL players are NFL players and you can't just, hero ball. It'll work sometimes. I mean, I do think he has a little bit of that Patrick Mahomes in him, but no, you cannot do hero ball on every play in the NFL and expect it to work. So that's the only thing about Caleb Williams, I would say, is any sort of weakness. And then first overall to Bears is the obvious destination for him, and he'll be the 101 in Superflex rookie drafts without even the slightest bit of thought. Just make the selection at 101. Talked about it on a recent video of trading rookie picks. Not looking at trading that pick unless I get an absolute monster haul. So just enjoy Caleb Williams, enjoy the best quarterback prospect, I don't know, maybe since Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck, and take him onto your Superflex Dynasty team, because this is what you tank for the 101 for. You're getting everything you could want. Now, if you liked the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And let me know what you thought of my takes on these quarterbacks. We're covering rookie content all week on the channel. And as always, the best way to support me is on the Patreon, patreon.com/fantasyadvice, where you can get my rookie ranks and get in the rookie discussion on my Patreon Discord. But until next time, thanks for watching, and I will see you all later. Peace out.